Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. I'm Matt Pieman Hill and I'm here on hand to guide you through day 2 of the PDC World Championship 2022, which gets underway very shortly. In fact, just thought we'd throw a quick preview of this afternoon and this evening's action together. Adam Smith unavailable through work commitments today, so you've just got me to take you through the action. And without further ado, let's dive into it because we've got 4 games this afternoon for this evening, plenty to get through. I'm just going to whiz through it with a little bit of insight on each match and potentially a selection as well for anyone who's interested. But we start the afternoon, as I say, pretty shortly with Steve Lennon versus Madars Razma in the first game of the day. It's a bit of a coin toss game, this, as the market suggests, virtually 10 to 11 the pair. Razma opened up a slight favourite here, but that has corrected slightly, and I think that's probably fair because Lennon's average over the season is slightly above Razma's, so he probably does deserve to be at least sort of an each of two contests. But just taking a look at Madars Razma firstly, I mean, the Latvian is quite an awkward opponent for anyone, largely the scorers, because he's an absolute treble 19 merchant. He will not start on the treble 20s very often at all. We'll generally see him starting on the treble 19s, and he's a very prolific hitter in that sphere as well. So you can expect 1-3-3s and 1-7-1s galore from Razma if he's on his game. Last year, we saw him at the Worlds. He beat a Japanese qualifier 3-0, where the Japanese qualifier actually played a lot better than expected. But Razma still managed to just about deal with him. He then took a set off Gary Anderson in round 2, so he's quite a solid performer. A regular on the Pro Tour, and he had a very good year in 2020, finishing inside the top sort of 6 or 7 on the Pro Tour Order of Merit, and hasn't been able to back that up this year, really. But he did make a semi-final at Players' Championship 26 in October, where he eventually bowed out to winner Rob Cross. So, very respectable form in that sense. And then I think if we look at his opponent, Steve Lennon, there's slightly less to go on in terms of the form. Lennon, a couple of Players' Championship quarterfinals earlier in the year, but we haven't really seen him do anything for some time now. And his only TV appearance in recent times was a comprehensive defeat to Damon Heta, friend of the channel, of course, in the Players' Championship finals first round. So Steve Lennon, of course, he has been to the World Cup of Darts final with Willie O'Connor for Ireland a couple of years ago, but it's been a pretty unremarkable year for him. His 2 wins on the Ali Pali stage have come against the big Aussie James Bailey and Daniel Larsson, the Swede, games that he would have been expected to win quite routinely. This is a tricky one. I don't have a really strong opinion on it, but I would probably lean towards Razma. I think if you want to get on side with Razma, rather than taking the 10 to 11 about the Latvian to win, play the 5 to 2 on him to win, with Lennon getting the most 180s, because as I say, Razma going to be using the treble 19 on most visits, so don't expect him to hit a lot of 180s, and you can really take advantage of that loophole in the market there by siding with Lennon on the 180s market, but Razma in the match betting, and I think that comes out at around 5 to 2, and I think that's a value selection for that first game. Moving on to the second game of the afternoon, we have Chris Landman up against Scott Mitchell. Chris Landman, the Dutchman, not a very Dutch-sounding name, but yeah, trust me, he is Dutch, and he's quite a surprising entrant in the World Championships because he came through the Western Europe qualifier, which was packed with several more reputable Dutch names. Just to take a look at the kind of players that he beat to get here: Jelle Klaassen, Christian Kist, Geert de Vos, names that darts fans will be very familiar with. All fell to Landman on his way to the final, and he won that final to get here to the World Championships, but to be honest, I had a little look into the averages. Didn't look like he had to get above the 90 mark to do so. So that may say more about the poor form of his opponents rather than himself. But he has played on the BDO for a number of years, made the quarterfinals of the BDO World Championship in 2020, going out to eventual winner Wayne Warren. So he is someone that Scott Mitchell will know from his BDO days, and he will take a bit of beating. He's a steady operator on the looks of his statistics. However, Scott Mitchell is a much more attractive proposition. Popular ex-BDO world champion, of course, and he's making a really good fist of things in the PDC, getting his tour card in January through Q School, and he's been very competitive in these Players' Championship events this year. Got to, a few quarterfinals in the Players' Championships earlier in the year, and we saw some good TV performances from Scotty Dog as well. He's a regular sort of mid-90s averages kind of guy. He can get up into that sort of 98 to a ton region on his day, so a very dangerous operator, and he's got plenty of TV pedigree. I expect him to have too much for Landman. I think they'll have probably met in their BDO days. There's a clear golfing class on the statistics, and Mitchell's experience of winning that televised BDO World Championship should stand him in good stead here. So while it could have been a banana skin for some less experienced players, I think Scott Mitchell's experience should get him through here. And a 3-0 correct scoreline for Scott Mitchell, which I could quite feasibly see happening, is around the 11-4 mark. So maybe worth a look in that market there. Game 3 of the afternoon sees Chaz Barstow up against John Norman Jr. And this is a good one for the neutrals to tune into, largely because of the Canadian John Norman. But I will get onto him in a minute. Let's just start with Chaz Barstow. One of the unluckiest men ever to not get through a Q school. He was literally getting his card until the last second of the last day, where Danny Baggish, you may remember, just sneaked in ahead of him. And Barstow was the unlucky man to drop into that final position and miss out on getting a tour card. But to be fair, where he's had bad luck there, he has also benefited from what has been an unusual year on the tour, with a number of COVID dropouts at the Players' Championships. Barstow was often the first reserve and frequently took his chance in these Players' Championship fields throughout the calendar year. Very impressive in those tournaments as well. Several ton-plus averages. He's been playing very well in the online live league. And he does have a 6-2 win over Gerwin Price to his name earlier in the season. So he's proven himself to be really at home in the floor events. And it's just whether he can transfer that to the biggest stage of all. We did see him in the Players' Championship finals last month. That was his first taste of a big TV tournament. But this is a whole different level. I really hope he could get his card in January, Chaz Barstow. Of course, he would get it automatically with a run to the 4th round here. But the winner of this game does face Meikle van Gerwen in round 2. To get there, he'll have to beat John Norman Jr. What a character this guy is, if you haven't seen him play before. The Canadian partner John Part in the 2017 World Cup of Darts. And he did so in tremendous fashion, to be honest, when he was visiting the board and getting a 1 treble visit, say a ton or a 97. He was roaring and celebrating, you know, to the likes of somebody hitting a 9-darter in the World Championship final. We're seeing fist pumps. We're talking shouting. We're talking aggressive cheering in his opponent's face. This is a guy I'm looking forward to watching. I don't know if he's mellowed or not in those 3 or 4 years, but I advise you to go back and watch clips of John Norman Jr. on YouTube after this video, because when he played with Part in 2017, John Part was virtually mortified at the way that his partner was performing, although he didn't say as much in his interviews afterwards, but he was clearly quite embarrassed. You know, there was a famous clip where he was trying to hit a single 16. He went into the 7 and then hit a single 9 and celebrated wildly at hitting the single 9. So he's a real character. However, give him some credit. He's won the CDC Canadian Tour to get here. The likes of Matt Campbell, Jeff Smith knocking around on that. He's clearly come on a lot in recent years from that World Cup showing. Whether he could do it on the big stage, I'm not sure. And it's not a game I would be urging anyone to get massively involved in. However, I do think Barstow's extra experience of playing quality operators week in, week out that he's accumulated this year should be enough to see him over the line. But John Norman, going to bring the fireworks, you would think. Looking forward to watching that one. Final game of the afternoon session is a round 2 clash, and it's a tasty one. It's Daryl Gurney up against rapid Ricky Evans. Ricky Evans last night, we saw him beat Nitin Kumar 3-0, but let's just touch on Gurney first. He had a bit of a nothing year in 2020, but then rocked up at the World Championships, and it was the Gurney of old, the Gurney who's won TV titles and majors and been a Premier League regular earlier in his career. He was fantastic at the Worlds last year, going all the way to the quarterfinals where he played Gerwin Price and lost a last set decider to Price. He was very unlucky to go down in that one, Gurney. He had 108 for the match in the last leg and couldn't get either of the treble 19s that would have given him a clear dart at double to knock out Gerwin Price. And we all know that Gerwin Price went on to win the World Championship. So that would have been a fantastic result for the Northern Irishman. And while he didn't quite get over the line, I thought he was very, very impressive last year. I was hoping that he would kick on and have a big 2021, but he didn't really. He's been pretty unremarkable, to be honest. He did have a good run at the Players' Championship finals last month. Definitely worth noting that. He beat Alan Sutar, James Wade and Michael Smith on a run to the quarterfinals. And some of those Players' Championship events before that, 28, 29, 30, we were seeing flashes of an informed Gurney returning. So it does appear he's peaking at the right time for this event. But I think he'll have a challenging match here against Ricky Evans. Evans had a bad year, and he's probably a player who's more known for his antics and likability than his actual achievements. Obviously, a very quick player, Rapid Ricky. He's got that reputation for the quickest ever 180, and he's all kind of bravado. But ultimately, his results haven't really stacked up in recent years, Ricky Evans, and he's plateaued really in his career. However, thought he was really impressive against Nitin Kumar yesterday. Checkouts of 167 and 130 and plenty of big scores. The Indian actually made a really good account of himself, I thought, but Evans just had far too much for him, and he was really, really efficient in getting that 3-0 win. I think that appearance on the stage yesterday will settle him down today. He's spoken openly after the match about how him and Daryl Gurney have become good friends in the last year. Could that play a factor in this one? Help relax Evans? I think so. I think he'll push Daryl Gurney hard in this one. Hard to say whether or not he'll have enough to get over the line. I mean, Gurney is a classy operator, someone who Evans described as a brilliant, brilliant player. So I'm not sure whether he gets over the line. I could see it going all the way. I could see Evans making a real good fist of it, though. And I think you could get over 2-1 on this game to go the distance 5 sets. That would make a fair interest punt for anyone neutral watching. Okay, let's move on to the evening session, and we open up with a cracker, one of the best first-round matches, potentially this one. Willie O'Connor plays the American Danny Lauby. A horror draw for both players, you have to say, but a great one for neutrals like myself and yourself, because I really like Willie O'Connor. I think he's one of the World Championships' great dark horses. He always comes in with little fanfare, and it just seems to deal with players really efficiently, the kind of players that you would expect him to beat. And he always gives a good game against the bigger names too. You only have to look at his last two years of round 2 defeats, going out in deciding sets 3-2 to Gerwyn Price and Daryl Gurney. The Price clash in 2020 in particular, he really should have won that one. He miscounted in what was a deciding leg, I believe, or I think they were in the sudden death part of the final set. I think he needed a double 2 to close out the leg with Price a mile back, and he went for double 1. And eventually that proved costly as Price ran out a winner. So, yeah, that could have been a really career-defining win for him. But a World Cup finalist alongside Steve Lennon, and as I say, gave Daryl Gurney, made him play his very, very best darts last year to dispose of him. So I like Willie O'Connor. I'm keen to get with him, and I think, the winner of this match has a very, very nice round 2 draw against the struggling Glenn Durrant. Obviously, we've documented Glenn's struggles a lot on this channel, and hope to see him back at his best soon. But you've got to say, whoever wins this match will be really fancying their chances of a first trip to round 3. Danny Lauby, Willie O'Connor's opponent, is a very dangerous runner. Gave Ryan Searle a cracking game in round 1 last year, 3-2, but that was a real scare for Searle because Lauby was playing some lovely stuff in patches before dipping off a little bit. The American, he topped the US Tour in 2021, so we haven't seen that much of him. He's been largely stateside. Couple of trips to the Challenge Tour, and he was very competitive there. So he has got a little bit of stage experience. Added to that stage experience further at the World Cup this year when partnering Chuck Pooley, or should have been partnering Danny Baggish, of course, before Danny Baggish encountered some quarantine issues. So it was Lauby and Pooley who represented the USA. They won their first round match and then went down to Australia, Whitlock and Heta, in a tight affair. Lauby losing out 4-3 to Whitlock. But he really looks at home on the stage. Very nice action to watch. Very quick player, confident player. Looks like he's going to improve. Still only in his 20s. So got the world at his feet, Danny Lauby. He's a big hope for American darts. However, I do think he just comes up against a really ruthless operator at this kind of event and this kind of part of the event. So Willie O'Connor to dispose of Danny Lauby, I think. And I think you can get even money about him doing so by a 3-0 or a 3-1 scoreline. And that seems fair. I expect Lauby maybe to take a set. I don't think it'll be a steamrolling, but I think O'Connor has too much for him. The second match of the evening session is Ryan Meikle up against Fabian Schmutzler, the German who's bound to be getting the big build-up and the headlines tonight because he's going to become the second youngest ever competitor at a PDC World Championship. Brilliant. Good luck to the young lad. 16-year-old German. He came through the Euro Development Tour really out of nowhere because he hadn't played in several of the first events. So he effectively rocked up at the last 4 or 5 events and played some fantastic stuff, winning one or two and going deep in the others. And that shot him all the way up to second place in the Euro Dev Tour, earning him a spot at the World Championship and earning him plenty of press fanfare alongside it. However, I do have my worries over whether a 16-year-old can replicate his floor form on a World Championship stage. This will be like nothing he's ever experienced before, and you couldn't blame him if he was overwhelmed by this. He faces Ryan Meikle. Ryan Meikle wouldn't have been expected to be a more experienced runner in many games at this World Championship, but he certainly is in this one. He's another product of the PDC youth system coming through the British Development Tour. He's a World Youth Championship semi-finalist from a couple of years ago, and he's really held his own since coming onto the main tour. He had some good performances in the Players' Championship events last year. He pushed Peter Wright very close at the Players' Championship finals in 2020, losing the deciding leg 6-5, and he was actually throwing for that match, so very unlucky to go out in that particular match. And he would face Peter Wright in round 2 if he wins this. So, look, his previous 2 visits to the Ali Pali have not been happy hunting ground for him. He lost 3-1 to Japanese qualifier Yuki Yamada in 2020, a game that he would have fancied winning, and then he was polished off quite easily 3-0 by Keegan Brown last year. So Meikle, he does still need to deliver that first big performance on the World Championship stage, but this looks like a prime chance for him to do so, because Schmutzler is bound to be nervous, and I could see Meikle, similar to the O'Connor match, I could see him just having a little bit too much experience for his opponent. 3-0 Meikle is 11-4. I could certainly see the value in that, but I think this game is very dependent on the first set. If Schmutzler settles better than Meikle and does win the first set, who knows? Maybe his confidence will ride high. He's clearly a talented young boy. He could cause an upset and write a bit of a fairy tale story for himself, but I'd be siding with experience here. Ryan Meikle, 3-0, 11-4, looks an interest play. On to the penultimate match of the evening, then it's Ron Meulenkamp up against Lisa Ashton. And obviously, Lisa Ashton, the second female competitor in this tournament, alongside Fallon Sherrick. And while Fallon gets all of the headlines due to her recent achievements in the last couple of years, Lisa has been equally important for the emergence of women's darts. And I really would like to see Lisa get that TV win that she desperately deserves on the Ali Pali stage. There is question marks over her performance on the floor and whether she merits these positions in the World Championship, but I think it's important that we do have women playing in this World Championship, and Lisa has never looked truly outclassed at this World Championship, lest we forget. 3 years ago she played Jan Dekker and put in a phenomenal performance. She was averaging close to 110 when taking the first set, and Dekker had to produce some of the best darts we've seen from him in 3 or 4 years to eventually dispose of Ashton 3-1. And by the same result, last year she played Adam Hunt, and that was a fantastic game. She had her chances, she played really well. Adam Hunt played really well as well, and eventually Hunt nicked it 3-2. But Ashton, yeah, that really was one that got away for her, and you could guarantee she'll be absolutely desperate to get that World Championship win under her belt, because it's, you don't know how many more opportunities she's going to get with 2 women qualifiers each year. There are a lot of good, exciting, emerging female talents in the game at the moment. And Lisa, while she is still clearly one of the best 2 operators alongside Fallon, she may not get many more chances on this stage. So here's hoping she can put in a big performance. She faces Ron Meulenkamp. Bit of a funny one, Ron Meulenkamp. He's been around forever, the Dutchman, but his form is very erratic, to say the least. Seemed to be having a little bit of a resurgence earlier in the year, but the back end of the year, his performances have been extremely concerning for me. Not made it beyond the second round of the Players' Championship event since July, so that is a lot of first and second round exits under his belt. And he was also pretty poor on the TV when we last saw him. So I see no reason not to get behind Lisa here. She'll have the crowd behind her. I think she clearly raises her game both times she's been to the Ali Pali previously. And I think Meulenkamp is a vulnerable opponent. Obviously, if Ron plays his best, and a lot of the time we do see the male players raise their game when they're up against a female player at the Ali Pali. But yeah, I mean, he'll have to play a lot better than he has in recent months, because Lisa will have the crowd behind her. And I think at 5-2, you could do a lot worse than side with Lisa Ashton here. Final game of the night is Gary Anderson against Adrian Lewis, and it's a game that needs absolutely no billing, to be honest. A repeat of the 2011 and 2016 World Championship finals, an absolutely mouth-watering affair. And I'm not going to say too much on this game, because I think it writes its own script. I would discount the rankings of these two players, discount recent form, because these two have got quality in abundance, and I expect them both to turn up and put on a real show for everybody. Gary Anderson, of course, a finalist last year here, despite doing nothing in 2020, and we really hoped we would have a big 2021 from Gary Anderson, but it hasn't really happened. Same old story, a lack of finals and semi-finals, missed a lot of Euro events due to COVID, missed a lot of Players' Championship events due to opting against them, and then some flickers in the last couple of months of the old Gary Anderson. And look, Gary Anderson in this stage of his career, he's picking and choosing his events very carefully, and we can't blame him for that. So Gary Anderson, I expect him to turn up at the World Championships. I expect him to play well, but he'll have to play well against Adrian Lewis. Lewis's dip has been well documented, but we've mentioned a couple of times in recent months, he appears to be turning a corner, and I thought that was an impressive win over Matt Campbell last night, having been forced to really dig in there. So both players will be trying to deflect the pressure off themselves in the build-up and just going out to enjoy it, but both of these are going to want to win. I expect a high-quality encounter. I think we could get up towards the 100 averages for the first time in the tournament here. And I think the over 180s player market is the way to go for anyone looking for an interest. Ando is 6-4 to hit over 5 180s, but AD Lewis nearly 5-2 to hit over 5 180s. We know when he's in his rhythm, he could do that quite easily. I could see this going 4 or 5 sets, which gives him time to do so. And I think Gary Anderson's pace of play suits AD Lewis to a T. He knows him very well, and I expect a good performance from both. And this is one to just sit back and enjoy. Okay, that concludes the run-through of today's action. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, please, if you are new to the channel, do give us a subscribe, a like, and it's always nice to have a comment and hear who you're backing and who you fancy for glory. I'll try and be back very soon to provide more daily updates. With myself and Adam are working them around our work and life schedules at the moment, but always enjoy sitting down to take a look at the darts. Thanks for watching, and see you again very soon. Cheers.